Hello whiskey lovers, welcome once again to one of Mark's Whiskey Ramblings. Still in the garden, the sun is shining, it's a beautiful day. So let's try something special, a world whiskey. The Rudolf Jellineck distillery from Czechia. Now, they are a rather big player in the Eastern European market with regards to, for example, Slivovic, a very famous Czechian East European spirit drink. But they also produce vodkas, liqueurs, fruit liqueurs primarily. And since 2007, they've been starting to produce whiskey with the, I have to say, rather hilarious name, Gold Cock. Anyway, 3 years ago, my father went to Czechia on holiday, and during his holiday, he calls me up and he says, "Hey son, I'm in a liquor store here, and they have got Gold Cock Czechian whiskey. Do you want Czech whiskey?" And I'm like, "Czech whiskey? Yeah, sure, bring it on, bring it home, Dad." He said they've got two types. On the one hand, there's the Gold Cock Red Feathers. It's a 3-year-old blended whiskey from Czechia. And on the other hand, we've got the 12-year-old Green Feathers from Gold Cock, and this is a single malt, and it's peated. Now, what is so special about this, because it says on the label original recipe, and I was thinking, original recipe, what the hell does that mean? I mean, to make whiskey, you've got barley, you've got water, you've got yeast, and then thyme on an oak barrel. That's it. So what is the original recipe? So I did a little bit of research, and it appears that, well, the special ingredients in this whiskey are in fact locally grown barley from Czechia, and also they mature on oak barrels from Moravia in Czechia. So locally grown barley, local water, local peat in this case, and then also local oak for the barrels. So that's the original recipe. Now, I've tried them before, and I have to say, when I first tried them, that was about 3 years ago, I was not very much impressed. I even remember calling them atrocious. But I think that may have to do with the fact that I was little experienced at the time, because I've recently, just before this Whiskey Rambling as some sort of a preparation, you know, I tried them again, and while they're still not very big whiskies, they were okayish. So bear with me. Let me start with the 3-year-old blended whiskey. I could not find out what exactly it is a blend of, because you would think, well, they have a single malt. Does that mean they also have grain whiskey that they produce to put in their blends? Or do they import grain whiskey? Or I just don't know. All I know is that this is a 3-year-old, which is very young, of course, matured on Moravian oak. It's bottled at 40% ABV. And it's creamy, and mostly plum liqueur, I have to say. But there's also loads of vanilla in there, and a touch of oranges, not too much though. But it's all rather delicate, young, flat, domesticated, yeah, a bit docile. But it's not as unpleasant as I remember this. Well, it's a rather one-dimensional whiskey, because on the palate as well, it's a little creamy. I've got loads of vanilla, oranges, hardly any spices, no bite whatsoever, a bit of bubblegum in fact, but it just seems more like a fruit eau de vie than a whiskey, this one. It really does. Well, but it's not as bad as I remember it. The 12-year-old, it's got the same colour, bright golden, sunlight to bright golden. This one does have a little bit more viscosity to it, it seems, and this one is bottled at 43% ABV. Now, according to the website, this 12-year-old will be appreciated by whiskey lovers around the world for its full body and its peat aroma. Right. Well, it's not as oily as the blended whiskey, but it is the exact same aroma. I mean, I get, again, the vanilla, the plums, a bit of oranges, but there is indeed a touch of peat, but it's not at all like the peat you would expect from Islay. or Orkney peat or nothing like that. That's just a pinch of peat in there. It's not even smoky at all. This is very soft. Yeah, on the palate, for me, it doesn't really work. The peat does not really enrich the spirit in this case, because it is too sweet, too plum liqueur-like. It's more like an eau de vie, but peated then, and that just isn't... I won't call it foul, but it's not very pleasant either. Come to think of it, then the blended whiskey, which is definitely aperitif. It's so sweet. It's not even an aperitif. It's a cocktail drink. While this one it's got a little bit more body. That's true, but the sweetness and the peat, which is a touch soury and a bit moldy even, it just doesn't seem to work for me. So the finish is short. Thank you. Mercifully short. Well, it's something else, of course. A Czech whiskey, a world whiskey. We don't get that every day. And I'm not the type of guy who says, well, whenever you want to drink a good whiskey, you have to go back to Scotland. But I always find myself coming back home to Scotland, Scotch-wise, whiskey-wise. And there are a couple of beautiful world whiskies out there. There is this other Czech whiskey, for example, Hammerhead. Hammerhead 1989, which is a beautiful whiskey. This one does not even come close, I'm afraid. This one comes closer to the Egyptian whiskey that I once had. You've heard that, right? Egyptian whiskey called the Old Stag. That was dreadful. That's something I used to clean my windows with. Well, this one, I have to admit, comes pretty close. This one is okayish, because it is sweet like a cocktail, like a mixer. But I wouldn't want to call it whiskey, although technically it probably is whiskey. But, well, I can still use it to clean my windows or my barbecue or whatever. And if you want to try it, just, send me an email and I'll be happy to send you a sample, because I've had these bottles for 3 years already and it doesn't look like they're gonna be empty anytime soon. That's it for this Whiskey Rambling. I hope to meet you again real soon at one of Mark's Whiskey Ramblings. Until then, may the malt be with you. Bye bye.